A very good morning. Myself, I'm Dr. Neema Acharya. I'm professor and head at Department of OBGY at Datta Meghe Institute of Medical Sciences, and this is the place where I work. At the outset, let me thank Dr. Alka Mukherjee and NOGS for giving me this opportunity to share my knowledge on how to write a thesis for a postgraduate student in obstetrics and gynecology. Now, what is thesis, and first of all, why we should do it, right? So this question comes to all the postgraduate students, and then they are very much, they are not very much interested in doing this job. So it's not that difficult, and it's not that complicated. There are certain rules which we all should follow, and I think with that SWAYAM and biomedical research course which you all do, you must be getting some better idea than what we had in our postgraduate days. Now, a thesis, as we all know, is a long essay or dissertation involving personal research written by a candidate. Now, what is the difference between thesis and dissertation? Thesis is, it is done in your own field, and maybe that project or maybe that research question has already been tested and proven in the past, but you are now again making the evidence strong by providing your own results. So what is known in is again maybe researched. In dissertation, it is the original research which is done by the candidate. So generally, dissertation is when a PhD candidate does a novel search in for their course, right? So thesis is generally for master's degree, right? Now, the parts of thesis, I'm not going to go on how you come to your thesis topic and how you come to, to selecting a particular topic, because it will be a very long talk, and that all you must have learned in your biomedical research modules. Now, once you have selected a topic, that means you have a clear picture on PICO, that is population, intervention, and the comparison and the outcome, right? Now, the parts of theses are generally introduction, then you have aims and objectives after this, then you have theory or the review of literature pertaining to your topic, then you write about methodology, then you give results in a tabular form or charts, then you argument with the available literature what you found in your research, so that is generally discussion part, and then you give some implementation of your findings in your discussion also, and at the end you conclude and then you give your suggestions and recommendations. Now, the title, coming to title. The title, as you all know, you have already selected your title for your thesis. You have got your ethical committee clearance also done. So, a typical title, if you get an opportunity, you must again revise or go through your title. Is your title very crisp, and it is very specific to your topic? So is it making it very clear what exact population are you talking about, what intervention are you talking about, which two groups you are comparing, and what is the outcome, right? For example, if you're doing a study in latent phase of labor for effect of or the perinatal outcome, maternal outcome, for say those who have abnormal CPR, right? So if your title does not have in latent phase of labor and you're just writing an ad term, so that means you have not made it very specific what is the gestation at which you're going to do, and that too, it's going to be in latent phase of labor, right? So your PICO should be clearly visible in your title. It should be very specific, right? So if you feel that something is little bit misguiding or it is not specific, then you should revise your title if you have an opportunity, right? So title should be very crisp and very specific to your PICO. Then the aims and objectives should be well defined and in synchronization with each other. So aim is the long term application of your project, which is going to be useful in your clinical practice. So if I'm studying the role of cerebroplacental ratio in detection of high risk feti in labor, right? You That means what? The goal is that you want to see its role in long term. Is it applicable? That are you going to use it for screenings, high risk feti in latent phase of labor for low risk mothers? So that's going to be my long term aim. But what are my objectives? Objectives are what exactly are you going to do in your thesis, in this particular thesis. Means what am I going to do for that? I'm going to take all pregnant women at term who come in latent phase to me in labor. Then I'll have two groups who, and then I'll be doing cerebroplacental ratio by Doppler for all these mothers in latent phase. Then I'll have two groups, one group which has a normal CPR and another group which has a abnormal CPR. And then I'm going to compare the perinatal or outcome in these two defined groups. So my aim is going to be to know the role of CPR in latent phase of labor for detection of high risk feti. But what is my objective? The objective is going to be to study the cerebroplacental ratio in low risk mothers at term in latent phase of labor in low risk women. The second objective is going to be I'm going to compare the perinatal outcome in the women who have normal CPR and then those who have abnormal CPR. That is the only objectives, two objectives of this present study, right? So that you have two specific objectives, one or two, or at the most three specific objectives in your study. Then coming to introduction. So introduction should have basically people are confused between just writing the introduction about, say, as I said, if it was about cerebroplacental ratio, I would have written everything about cerebroplacental ratio. It's not like that. Introduction should have some background, like why you thought perinatal mortality or morbidity is an important issue, and how recently cerebroplacental ratio is used to detect these feti. Now, presently, the literature says that cerebroplacental role has so much sensitivity, so much specificity, and it is useful. And certain studies say it is not that useful, and that is why you feel that since it's a non-invasive test, can it be done? And you want to support the data, so you must find out what is the research gap, so what is already proven and what needs to be done further, and that is why you want to study that particular part in your study. That should be the end of your introduction and not just the theoretical aspect of what is your topic. So introduction or background should give the actual purpose of you selecting this topic and actual purpose of doing this study, so that you are going to provide some evidence, some data for the in the field of OBGYN. Now, the review of literature. So, review of literature is first of all something theoretical related to your topic, so that the examiner or the reader, whosoever is reading your thesis, knows what exactly are the different things which you are going to study. So all the definitions and everything should come in review of literature, and at the same time it should have the recent last 5 years studies which have been done specific to your PICO, right? Because these are the studies which you are going to discuss. The same studies will be discussed in your discussion part. Now, review of literature should also have certain categories, right? Like you should have a clear thought process under what headings are you going to discuss your particular study, right? So, the cerebroplacental ratio will be one study. Then cerebroplacental ratio in low risk mothers will be the studies will be another 4 or 5 studies. Then what happens to feti, those with normal CPR? What happens to feti? So certain the categories will be like that, and the studies will be quoted like that, right? So review of literature should be uh, very not very long back. It should be last 5, at the most 10 years, and the same studies are generally discussed in your discussion. Now, coming to material and methods. Material and methods, one is the research question, what you have thought of, or the hypothesis which you have thought of. And the second thing is the methodology. So, methodology should not be taken very lightly. It is the main part of your thesis, which actually tells the examiner or the reader what exactly have you done and how clear was your thought process while doing this study. It tells you how you selected the candidates or the participants of your studies, how you excluded the this thing, participants. So first of all, in materials and methods, you must have these steps, definitions of inclusion and exclusion type criteria, data dictionary. That means you must give definitions for all these selections. Like if I do a study on PCOD, so how am I going to define a PCOD categorize a patient into PCOD. So then I must give all the recent American Fertility Society or Endocrine Society criteria for diagnosis of PCOD, which you are going to use to select your candidates. So all those things should be mentioned in your methodology. Then you can give it in your annexures also as a data dictionary. Now, the procedure of data collection should also be mentioned, and which method of statistics are you going to use, that also be mentioned. And the beginning of the study, the beginning of material and method should tell you, should have the exact type of study which you are going to do. A typical postgraduate thesis is either a cross sectional study or a case control study. I'm not going to go into details of all this because it's a complete one topic in itself, but because you are doing it in a fixed period of 1.5 2 years, it is generally a cross sectional study. If it's an interventional study, you have to be very specific about how you randomize the candidates, and all that has to be mentioned very well, right? But interventional studies always have more weightage in research area and also in publications. So this is how, as you can see here, they have mentioned here, they selected certain candidates, then in between they excluded certain candidates because they had some drawbacks or they were not fulfilling the inclusion criteria, and then only few were included finally, and then they moved ahead in study. Again, they can be excluded at different levels of study. So you must have this flow chart of methodology as far as possible, which makes it very clear for the examiner or the reader what exactly you did and how your candidates came from 400 numbers to 250 numbers, like that, and how you excluded them. So correct tools which are going to be used for statistical analysis, then the level of significance should be very well mentioned in your statistical method which you're going to use, and what exactly are you going to take the level of significance, right? Then you must have an institutional ethical committee clearance certificate attached to your thesis, and if at all possible, as we do in our university, we have a copy, we put it in the binding only. From this year we have made it a soft copy only. We have stopped making making it or getting it bind. They don't bind it now, right? So this has to be certified by the university or the director or dean of the institute. Now coming to observations and results. So observations and results, what are we going to see when we verify the thesis? Are the observations and results collated with charts? That means first of all, they should be chronologically arranged, like what epidemiology, then specific to your topic, they have to be arranged very specifically with proper headings, with proper tables, having all the statistical methods mentioned there, and they should be having tables graphed correctly, correctly numbering should be done. The same numbering should be depicted in your discussion part. So take care of all these things when you are making the table numbers. A table and graph should not have same chronological numbers. Like table 1 should not be followed by chart 2. So table 1, table 2, table 3, table 4, chart 1, chart 2, chart 3. And similarly, it should be discussed and depicted or cited in your discussion, right? Now coming to discussion. Discussion should be in conformity with the collected data. That means whatever results you have done, the same things need to be discussed. This is what happened, or this is what we found in our study. This is what happened to our patients, and why it was similar to the given review of literature studies, or why it was different from it. And that reasoning should be very well given and very well argued in your discussion. So discussion is just not like, we found this and those et al found that. Don't do that. You have to give a proper argument. You must argue whether what you found is basically different from these studies, but this could be because of such and such factors. So don't make it very monotonous, like, this was the finding which we got and this is the finding which et al got. Don't do that. So it has to be argumentative in your discussion part. Now, coming to implications. So, your discussion or summary, in our university, we have a separate category called summary, where we give the implication and what exactly we got in a before conclusion this part comes, and this we give ultimately what exactly we got in a nutshell in our studies. So all those headings of tables can be summarized point wise, like this was a study of done for this purpose, this was done for 2 years, this was done in this department, and then this was the purpose of doing this study, and we found these findings, and this is the implication which we feel is going to be about this study. Now coming to conclusion part, this is the most important part. In conclusion, what we find in different studies which or the theses which we get is they write everything which is going to be implication of your studies into conclusion. Conclusion is specific to what was your objective. So I was going to compare, say, cerebroplacental ratio and whether it was normal and abnormal, and what happened to the feti, the perinatal outcome in normal group, and what happened to the feti in those having an abnormal group. So my conclusion is going to be just two-line conclusion to two-line objectives. So your conclusion is just specific to your objectives and nothing more than that. So my conclusion is going to be there is a significant difference in perinatal outcome of patients who had normal CPR than those who had abnormal CPR when it was done at term in latent phase of labor. The second, this was my first objective. Then the second objective was what was the outcome. Then you are going to write that the perinatal outcome was worse in patients who had abnormal CPR than those who had normal CPR. And then in next one line, you can just write what were the significant bad outcomes specifically, like, NICU admissions were more, or you found that the Apgar score was this. In one line, you can write nothing more than that. And then comes the recommendation heading, under which you are supposed to write how it can be used in labor room in latent phase of patient. Means the patient comes in low risk, they are low risk, you can screen them, you can do it in labor room. So these all should not come in conclusion, this all should come in recommendations separately. So don't get confused between conclusion and recommendation, right? This is very important. Now, limitations should be written very well, and don't hesitate to write limitations. Whatever limitations you found in your study should be realistically portrayed, and one or two, there has to be some limitation. Everything cannot be perfect in your thesis. Some limitations must have been there. Now, coming to bibliography. Bibliography is written in a particular manner for every university. It could be different. What we have in here is a Vancouver system, and all our postgraduate students have learned how to use reference management apps. Like what we use here is a Zotero, and it becomes so convenient for postgraduate students to arrange their bibliography. Even if they have more than 100 references, they never need to arrange them manually because they have understood how to use Zotero, right? Now, annexures are very important. All these annexures should have your master chart of your whatever entries you have done. It should have all the definitions. It should have all the short forms, ethical committee clearance. If you got any grant from ICMR, all these should be attached in the annexures. Now, master chart. Master chart, it's very important because master chart is where you note down every day your thesis cases. So you all should know how to handle an Excel sheet, and you must ask your statistician whether he needs two sheets or in one sheet only he needs your patients in one sheet. So all these things need to be discussed with your in-house statistician if you have, or anybody who's going to do your statistics, right? So master chart is a must, and learn to make it in the beginning itself when you conceptualize your thesis, and learn to manage the Excel sheet also. Now, what exactly is the role of institution and guide? So, as a guide, it should be he or she should be very supportive, and the institution should also have a research cell or a team of research guides who can help and solve problems of the candidates. We have a complete research and research cell. We have a separate infrastructure, separate faculty who are always there to help us, and even we have been trained for that. So please, the teachers should also get trained either through Swayam or through research workshops so that they can guide, yes, their students very well. So a good support system and monitoring system is very must. what we do is every 3 monthly we take review of our candidates, what they have done, thesis progression. So we have a Gantt chart made. You all must be knowing what is Gantt chart. So you plan your project, and in the 2 years, what is going to be your quarterly goal, that you must finish your master chart by the time 1.5 year is over. So first 3 months is synopsis, second 3 months is actually getting the ethical committee. Once you get started, then next is data collection, then next 6 months is analysis. Like that we follow. So those targets need to be followed, so that you're not getting confused at the end of two years and you're not organized. So monitoring by the institute, by the department, by the guide, by the head of the department is a must. And that what is recommended by National Medical Council is every, or UGC, it's 3 monthly. So research team in department and in your university is the most important backbone of all these PG thesis writing. So I feel it was a very not I may not say it was in too much detail, but yes, I have given a few tips how to write theses for all postgraduate students. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And last but not the least, publications. The whole world should know what you have generated as evidence. So what all things you can publish through your one thesis is, you can do one original article once you finish your thesis. Then when you made your synopsis 2 years back, or when the new candidates are going to make synopsis, even the synopsis protocols are published by certain journals. And you can always make a review article, narrative reviews with your guide, because you are the expert in that particular field, because you've been doing this work since last 1.5 2 years. You have gained so much review of literature. So please, you must do one review article if you are interested. What we tell is, we tell all our students to do one original article, synopsis protocol, and review article. So these can be done with your PG thesis. And it's not very difficult if you follow certain guidelines. And if you need any help, we are there to help you. I'm just a call away, and we can always help you in this, right? Thank you so much. Now, if you make it organized, it's not at all difficult. That is what I'm going to tell you as a as my last thing, and a message to all of you. So wish you all the best for your thesis writing, and it's not at all difficult. You should not panic. And if you're organized since beginning, it can be done very easily. Thank you so much, NOGS, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.